It is 8:34, and this morning we've been following the big issues on the agenda as Texas lawmakers kick off a special session today. From flood prevention to redistricting, our Jalissa Garza has been breaking it all down for us this morning. All morning long, she's been telling us everything that's on the agenda.
And once again, she joins us live with a wrap up on what to expect. So, okay, Jalissa, it's going to be an extremely busy 30 days for lawmakers. At the very least, we know that.
Yeah, Jacob and Steph, it sure is. A 30-day deadline and a long list of challenges that come with some of the 18 items on the agenda. Lawmakers are under pressure to deliver fast while also facing scrutiny from voters, advocates, and the courts. The biggest challenge is making lasting change that does more good than harm, especially on issues with long-term impacts. Now, flooding prevention is taking center stage after the deadly 4th of July weekend floods in the Texas Hill Country. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who toured the hardest hit areas, wants new warning sirens installed along the Guadalupe River. He says phone alerts aren't enough in low-lying, high-risk zones. And Governor Abbott added the proposal to the agenda. Another hot-button issue is redistricting. 3 Harris County congressional districts could be redrawn. Democrats call it a power grab. Republicans say it's about fair representation. But political experts warn the move could backfire for both sides depending on how it's handled. And with so many priorities, the big question now is whether lawmakers can get it all done in just 30 days.
It's just hard to tell where redistricting will fall in their priority until really the session starts and we see the conversations begin.
Right, and I think they do have a genuine goal of making sure that the Texas priorities are first, and if they can get to this for the president, they will. But President Trump is very powerful within his party, and his voice will be heard throughout the session.
Now, again, with just 30 days to hammer out deals on all of this, from flooding to redistricting, THC, and even the possible elimination of the STAR test, lawmakers do have a lot of work cut out for them. And of course, we'll keep tracking what happens at the Capitol and how it could impact us here at home, because Jacob and Steph, we know there is a long list of items that would impact Houstonians right here.
And we know, Jalissa, that some of these topics will ruffle some feathers. That is the lightest way we could possibly put it. Do you think that we'll see bipartisan cooperation at all in any of these items?
Yeah, Jacob, that's a great question, one that I asked Professor Yan about, because some of these big topics like THC bans or flood prevention have brought lawmakers together. So we could see some bipartisan moments, but we know when it comes to some other topics like redistricting, well, we can only hope for some bipartisanship. Jacob?
Yeah, we talked to Brandon a little bit about that too, and that's what he said. Hopefully on the flooding issue, at the very least, there's a lot of bipartisan work. Thank you, Jalissa, and we'll of course be checking in throughout the week.
And in just a few hours, Texas lawmakers will get back to work. The special 30-day session starts today with a packed agenda. Political expert Brandon Rottinghouse back with us, joining us live in studio to go over some of the biggest items. Brandon, thanks for being with us.
Welcome.
So let's start with the floods in the Hill Country. What can come out of this session with that?
There's a lot that lawmakers didn't do in the regular session that they'll probably do for the special session. Obviously, the urgency is ramped up by the fact that the tragedy occurred in the meantime. They're likely to spend a fairly healthy chunk of money to fix some of these issues and to address some of the things that went wrong. Probably some physical sirens is one thing. They'll probably have technology that'll be attached to that, some flood indicators. They'll probably also at least have some kind of revisiting of the question about how we should manage disaster in these kinds of cases. A lot of these local governments don't have the resources, so this is a moment where the lawmakers can really put their money where their mouths are.
So this is definitely needed. Now, can you expand a little bit about where this money will come from? Is this going to be taxpayer monies? Will they ask for money from the federal government? How will this work?
It's a great question. It'll be a combination of things. The easiest thing they can do is to spend Texas's money, right? They've got a little bit of extra left over from the session, so it'll be like a supplemental budget item. So that'll be partly where it comes from. But there are also opportunities here that if there's money from the federal government, that there's a chance that they could get some specific grants that might be in aid of a particular kind of technology or some kind of advance that they want to be able to put on the ground. So it'll be a combination combination of things, but mostly it'll be general revenue from Texas's bank account.
Redistricting is another big item on the agenda. There are some lawmakers here locally in Houston who are really upset with this. I think District 18 is one of the ones that's a real hot button issue right now.
Definitely. This is the kind of moment where lawmakers dread because they know that there'll be changes, and lawmakers don't want to see changes to their district. They become comfortable campaigning with what they have, and so they're going to have to really make some big changes. And the state may be in that mix. Basically what's happening is that the Republicans in D.C. are saying that they want to squeeze a couple of extra seats out of Texas. The gerrymander in Texas is already basically pretty effective. They've already gotten a number of Republican seats. And so there are a lot of lawmakers right now who are chewing their fingernails down thinking what their district might look like, because it could be very, very different.
So when you redistrict, and sometimes it can favor the Republicans, sometimes not, do you annex parts of another district? How does that all work, and why is it allowed for people who don't understand? This can be very complicated.
It is. It's very complicated, and there are hundreds of legal rules that dictate how and why the district shapes can be as they are. But in a nutshell, basically, the country redistricts once every decade. That's after each census, because then you can draw the lines more effectively to capture where people are living. But in a mid-district redistricting, a mid-district or mid-decade redistricting, you've got a kind of political angle to it. And this has happened in Texas before. We saw it happen in 2003. It's happened for counties. Tarrant County's doing it. Fort Bend County's doing it. So they're allowed to redistrict mid-decade, but it's not usually done. It's obviously going to be driven a lot by the politics nationally, and that's why a lot of lawmakers are really uncomfortable for this. And we could see some big changes here in Houston. Some of these districts either might not exist in the form we know them, or they may be very different.
Yeah, population at the soul. But someone's playing music over there. If you could just hang on a second, Brandon's got more to say. STAR test. Let's talk about that because parents, their ears perked with this.
Yes, so true. I know my kids just dislike the STAR test as much as you can. The House and Senate have negotiated some kind of a compromise between the two versions. The questions here are the kind of questions that everybody has, right? Yeah. How long should the test be? How frequently should the test be? How should the test be connected to rating systems for the local schools? So lots of questions that the House and Senate really were pretty far apart on. Now, the governor has backed the House's approach, which is a kind of frequent testing as well as some additional monies to be able to execute that. That's very different, though, from the House or for the Senate version. So we'll see how far they can get in terms of trying to find some common ground here.
Have you talked with parents personally, and what are their thoughts on this? Because I know we had to do the ACT, the SAT. I mean, if there was a test, we were taking it, you know, back in the 90s.
That's so true. No, and this is a real kind of an artifact of the time that Governor Bush was in power. It was all about accountability, and these tests were designed to do that. But as you say, now parents are just completely maxed out, and of course, the students are even worse. So this is a moment where I think everybody recognizes that there needs to be accountability in the school system, and there are lots of ways to get there. But the STAR tests, as they've been designed, have been too burdensome. So they'll probably find some kind of common ground, but it's going to be challenging because they only have 30 days. And so that's not a lot of time for them to really negotiate some very complicated and very kind of heavily sewn into the fabric of public education moments.
It's so fascinating. I could talk for hours with you because we don't even have time for THC, and we're going to have to bring you back. Okay, you will be a regular on this show, Brandon Rottinghouse. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We're holding him to it, Brandon Rottinghouse. All right, thank you so much. And we will have live team coverage all week from here in Houston and from our Victor Jacobo in Austin. You can find the latest updates on air and online at khou.com.
Time